So today's episode is part of our special Activist Lawyer episodes focusing on the current situation in Palestine, Israel, and we are lucky to be joined by Palestinian lawyers and people who can speak on certain legal aspects that we're going to raise over the next few weeks. We also have our normal format, which will feature a profile of human rights lawyers and academics who will talk about their work and their experience. We'll have some of those episodes coming for you soon. But today I'm joined by Dr. Munir Nuseibah, who is a human rights lawyer and academic based in Al-Quds University in Jerusalem, Palestine. He is an assistant professor at Al-Quds University's Faculty of Law, the director and co-founder of Al-Quds Human Rights Clinic, the first accredited clinical legal education programme in the Arab world, and the director of the Community Action Centre in Jerusalem. Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me again on this special episode of Activist Lawyer. We're in the studio in Newry, and I am very, very, very happy to be joined by Dr. Munir Nuseibah. Thank you, Dr. Munir, for joining me.
Thanks to you.
You're based in Jerusalem at the minute.
Yes, indeed, I am.
Very good. I've already introduced you to our guests, but just to talk about where we're at the moment in terms of what's happening with the ICJ. And I'm just interested in hearing your perspective about some of the matters as they've developed, but also maybe your opinion on how things might develop as we go through the next, I suppose, few weeks, months and years, I'm guessing, which will really take us up to when to expect further hearing and also an outcome on the case that has been taken by South Africa against Israel before the ICJ. So we're just over a week in now since South Africa presented their case against Israel at the ICJ, charging them with genocide, and exactly a week since Israel defended their case before the ICJ, and we've had nothing since. But I'm just, suppose, interested just firstly in asking you about what's been happening so far and just the ICJ and how maybe the structure of that is being presented in terms of what, South Africa needs to establish, and also where we're at in terms of the preventative measures as opposed to the full hearing, the merit of the case.
Yes. At the moment, South Africa had a lower bar of evidence expected from it at the application that it applied with the International Court of Justice. At the moment, what South Africa has presented so far is an application to the International Court of Justice to provide provisional measures and order provisional measures and orders to the State of Israel in order to stop the ongoing genocide in Gaza Strip that has started since the 7th of October. Mm-hmm. It has actually presented a lot of evidence that is more than sufficient for its application and request. Mm-hmm. It has shown first that the Israeli officials have had an intent for genocide through different things that they have said in the media and in different places, through their orders, through the way that they expressed that they intended to destroy Gaza Strip, to destroy the civilian population, that they didn't see a difference between civilians and militants in the Gaza Strip. All of these statements made by different officials were very important in expressing the intent. But they also, South Africa also reflected on the military action that Israel has been conducting in the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. This military action has several layers, actually. And this was very well expressed in the South African application. First, the siege on Gaza Strip, the full closure of the Gaza Strip, the prevention of food, water, medicine, fuel, electricity from getting into the Gaza Strip has been first announced and then implemented by the Israeli state institutions. They actively worked on cutting all of these basic needs for the people in Gaza Strip since the very early stages. And South Africa showed how Israel effectively did that. Then the military operations themselves, the type of bombing and shelling that the Israeli army has been conducting in the Gaza Strip was mainly focused on civilian life. Israel bombed everything. Schools, universities, cultural centers, medical institutions. There are most of the medical services in Gaza Strip don't exist anymore at the time when there are thousands and thousands of injuries who need urgent treatment, but also that there are thousands of ill people who also need treatment, but also as a result of the Israeli military operations, diseases are spreading very quickly and pandemics within the population of the Gaza Strip. One of the important elements of the Israeli war in Gaza Strip has been the displacement. Israel has thus far displaced more than 1.9 million Palestinians from their homes in the Gaza Strip. These people and the survivors so far of these people are living in very difficult situations, in very crowded areas, in schools, in camps, in the streets, also without any roof or tent above their heads. And many of them have been displaced once, twice, 3 times, and more. And diseases are really spreading very quickly among this population. This has been expressed very well by South Africa as well in its application. And the destruction of the medical institutions is actually one of the key elements of the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip. So all of this has been expressed by South Africa. Its application also indicated the jurisdiction of the court on the Gaza Strip, or on this dispute basically between South Africa and Israel. It did express why the court has jurisdiction based on the Genocide Convention, which allows states to refer to the ICJ cases where there is dispute between any two countries on genocide. And South Africa, before this trial, had already expressed its concerns with the Israeli genocide in Gaza. It actually referred the situation in Gaza Strip to the International Criminal Court, which is also an important element showing that it already had a dispute with Israel on this issue. It expressed in different multilateral spaces its fear from the Israeli genocide and its concerns, and therefore it has actually established everything that it needs to establish to convince the members of the court. Now, Israel has also presented defenses in the court. Its defenses were, I would say, two parts. On the first part, they focused a lot on jurisdiction. They are trying to ask the court to reject examining the case in the first place, so not to go to merit and not to examine genocide in the first place. They say that their main argument here is that there is no dispute between Israel and South Africa. Basically, that's the main argument that Israel has presented in the court. That there is no dispute, and therefore South Africa should not, the court should not take the case. Obviously, this is a bit weird. I mean, the fact that South Africa has gone to court even shows that there is a dispute. It wouldn't have gone to court just to play. I mean, it doesn't just have extra time and extra lawyers and extra money to go to court, just for fun. It does see that there is an ongoing genocide that it needed to, it felt that it had to intervene, representing the whole world, actually.
Yeah, as a state party to the convention,
Exactly, exactly. Um, and so it's actually establishing, a universal objective
Hmm.
in its application. And I believe that uh, it has been very brave. I should say here, and it does show a very high moral standing when it actually made this application.
Hmm.
It knows that Israel is supported by many countries around the world,
Yeah.
uh, and by many powerful countries around the world. It's supported by the United States, which not only supports Israel generally, but it's also supporting the Israeli genocide in Gaza Strip. Israel is supported by the European Union, which has been generally silent about the ongoing genocide. It has been silent about apartheid. So it's supported by the United Kingdom. It's supported by Canada, Australia, etc. So this genocide has, uh, unfortunately, is gaining powerful Western support,
Yeah.
uh, and South Africa very courageously
Hmm.
has decided to prioritize human protection over its own interests
Yeah.
with these countries, and I think it's very courageous.
It is.
So I'll continue with. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah, no,
please.
just on that point as well, I'm interested in getting your thoughts on, I suppose, legally speaking, in terms of countries who will perhaps, we've seen since South Africa brought their case, and we heard it on the 11th and 12th of January with Israel's defence, countries have come out now and have been a little bit more outspoken in terms of where they stand on this. And how important is it that a country will lend its support or join, which is the correct word that we've been seeing, South Africa, or indeed, like Germany, join Israel in their defence? What weight does that carry in terms of the court and the interaction with the court and the parties who've brought the action or are defending it?
It's very important. At the end of the day, this court is a body of the United Nations, and it actually cares about what members of the United Nations think
Hmm.
and what they advocate for. This doesn't necessarily have a determinal um, position inside the court, but it does help a lot.
Yeah.
And it does, every country has a certain angle of argument that it can bring. They don't necessarily bring in the same arguments. So let's look, for example, at South Africa. South Africa is currently presenting, its arguments for the provisional measures. In the future, when the next stage comes, it will be presenting the case for genocide and providing also evidence about the Israeli military operations, about the result of the Israeli military operations, and all of that. You will need other countries that have had interactions also
Yeah.
with this situation to testify. I think, for example, Egypt has a very important role. Until now, it has not expressed its willingness to join the case, unfortunately. I'm hoping that they will change their mind at a certain point, because Israel has actually accused them of, uh, you know, um, of their responsibility over the Rafah crossing, which is currently the main source of humanitarian aid, the main passage of humanitarian aid to Gaza Strip. Israel has been preventing this humanitarian aid, but in the court they decided to accuse Egypt of its responsibility over that. And this is a disaster
Yeah.
for Egypt, actually, and also for Palestine. So Egypt should certainly intervene. Jordan did express that it's willing to intervene in the case, and that's important. Jordan is a neighbor to Palestine. It has been attempting to drop humanitarian aid to Gaza Strip through its airplanes, but also through Egypt. So it also has a first-hand experience in the issue. And there are many other countries that can contribute. Now, it is very important for each country that can first support South Africa, at least morally, with a statement. This is important because it shows that this country believes that, one, the court has jurisdiction over the case, two, that Israel is conducting genocide in the case and in Gaza Strip. And that's very important. These two expressions are very important to make. The contrary is also very dangerous. Countries that support Israel are expressing one or two of the following positions. One, that the court maybe does not have a jurisdiction over the case, and that's maybe more of a purely legal issue. Yeah. But two, which is more dangerous, in my opinion, expressing that Israel is not conducting genocide. And here, we are going to deny it. We know that denial of genocide is very dangerous. We have experienced that in the past. Those who deny the Holocaust, for example, are very much risking the worldwide recognition of this terrible crime that happened during the Second World War. And, this is very dangerous to peace, to security, to human dignity. Currently, unfortunately, we are witnessing this denial. While the genocide is still ongoing, we are witnessing that there are many countries that are, and individuals obviously, that are taking this denial position, which risks the continuation of the genocide. If you don't oppress genocide, what you're actually doing is that you are encouraging the continuation of a genocide. This is the position of the United States. This is the position of Germany, unfortunately. And to be honest, with Germany, I feel that it is very sad that a country that has had genocide on its hands in the past, not only in the Second World War, but much earlier. Namibia reminded us of a much earlier genocide than the Holocaust, but then the Holocaust. And the Holocaust was a time that changed Germany, changed it very much. After the Second World War, Germany expressed repentance, basically. And it expressed that it will never do this again. And indeed, it has taken the responsibility very strongly for its genocide. It has been presenting reparations. It has changed its educational system, which is great. Now you talk to any German person, you will find that all of them are really aware of their mistake, or their country's mistake, obviously, and they will do everything in their capacity to prevent this again. But why would you allow it to another people? Yes, of course, we need to prevent any attempt at genocide to the Jewish people. This is not only a German responsibility, but this is a responsibility for each one of us in the world. But this certainly should not mean that we allow genocide on other people. The Palestinian people do not deserve genocide. They deserve freedom and justice. And what Germany is currently doing is complicity in genocide, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I believe that they should really re-examine their ethical, their ethical.
It's just very hard to understand how they've taken that position. There has been a lot of backlash within Germany itself, even over it. So it remains to be seen if they do review that position. I suppose one question just on the provisional measures. Is it a case that if the provisional measures, if we get a judgment on that, will that impact the overall merit of the case, which will of course take years, I'm guessing, for an outcome, to be reached in this, when we consider all of the investigations that have to be carried out and a review of all of the evidence, of which there's a significant amount. Will the hearings and the outcome of those hearings on the 11th, the 12th and 12th of January impact the case going forward, do you think?
Yeah, certainly, but not totally. So provisional measures in the, purely legally speaking, means that a certain court is convinced that there is a basis for it to take provisional measures, because generally speaking, the party that has asked for the provisional measures has shown that there is enough evidence, at least, to show that a crime is actually taking place, and that the court should intervene immediately. It doesn't mean that the court is yet convinced that this crime has been conducted. And this will be clear when they provide the provisional measures. They will not have already judged that Israel has conducted genocide. Mm-hmm. But what the court would have done by that point is that it is convinced that there is enough evidence for it to know that there is a basis to examine the Genocide Convention in this case, in the Palestine-Gaza case. And therefore, it would have to provide these provisional measures. Now, this is important. Unfortunately, if it denies these provisional measures, it also doesn't mean that it does not think that there is a genocide, but it's a very bad sign at the same time. And it also means that it is allowing the genocide to continue until it will decide, if in a few years from now, on the merit of the case. That would be very unfortunate if that happens. Nobody expects it, by the way. Most of the experts who know genocide and who know the ICJ believe that the court will take these measures. It has taken them in the past, and that means that it will take measures now. It will not probably allow an ongoing genocide to simply continue. It will not take that moral responsibility and that legal responsibility. It does have a legal obligation to give these measures. It's not just a matter of choice. It's also a matter of, of legal, legal responsibility for the court members, the judges, to give these measures. So, most probably, the court will give these provisional measures that South Africa requested.
I suppose you've touched on this, and that's a very important point to clear up. But you've touched on, I suppose, what South Africa have set out in terms of their charges, and I think their lawyer, Adila Hassim, noted 5 main genocidal acts that she accused Israel of committing: mass killings of Palestinians, bodily and mental harm, forced displacement and food blockade, destruction of the healthcare system, preventing Palestinian births. Horrendous charges, and they're using evidence that they have to back that up. But I'm interested in looking at intent, and while most legal commentators and experts like you, I have heard, are on the same side, I guess, in terms of what the outcome might be and what the court's responsibility is, especially when it comes to the protective measures. But I'm interested in how difficult it is to establish intent. I did hear one legal commentator say that, intent under the Genocide Act will be difficult to establish, despite the fact that Israel have been, or that South Africa have been able to present and will present, presumably, a serious and a significant amount of evidence. How do we link intent, though, with the actual actions? And will that, in your experience or in your opinion, be difficult to prove?
Let me maybe give a little bit of a background explanation about genocide. Genocide was not, by the way, prosecuted in the Second World War. After the Second World War, the winning parties of the war created the Nuremberg Tribunal and the Tokyo Tribunal. And within these tribunals, they defined only war crimes and crimes against humanity. Then later, the word genocide developed because it was clearly understood that all the crimes against humanity that Germany, for example, conducted during the Second World War, that were recognized at that time as crimes against humanity, were with a very specific intent. They were not there just as crimes against. I mean, there is no normal crime against humanity, but they were not just any crimes against humanity. They were done with a calculation to destroy the Jewish people in Germany and in other places. And this was given a very specific importance in the development of international law and international criminal law from that point on. It was seen that if a country is killing people, transferring people, torturing people, etc., causing all of this physical and psychological devastation to a specific group of people, because, with the intention here of destroying it in part or as a whole, then these crimes against humanity become genocide. Then they get a new definition. So what distinguishes genocide from other crimes against humanity, extermination, killing civilians in a widespread manner, right, in a conflict, transfer of civilians and displacement of civilians, deportation of civilians, is the intent of that specific state to destroy a population. Now, because what characterizes genocide is an intent, then this is what you need to prove in court if you're making the genocide claim. South Africa has made its application based on one convention, the Genocide Convention. The convention that the international community created in 1948, aiming at stopping genocide and fighting genocide and oppressing genocide and punishing genocide from that point onwards. Therefore, if what is happening in Gaza Strip is only crimes against humanity and war crimes, the court doesn't have a jurisdiction on this case, because South Africa is not claiming now in this case war crimes, crimes against humanity. It's claiming genocide. This means that South Africa, at the provisional stage, which we are in right now, which we expect will probably be decided by the 6th of February, so within a couple of weeks from now, or in the longer term, after it goes to the whole case against Israel, it will need to show and prove that Israel is not only conducting war crimes and crimes against humanity, which it has done for a very long time, actually, in every military operation that it conducted over the past, decades. It has conducted war crimes and crimes against humanity. It's a country that is conducting apartheid, for example, in Gaza Strip and the West Bank and Jerusalem, and within its own territory also, the territory where it claims its sovereignty, and apartheid is a crime against humanity. So it does conduct crimes against humanity, different crimes against humanity, but this specific act in Gaza Strip needs to be shown that it is not only a crime against humanity or a group of crimes against humanity, it's actually a genocide. One of the things that it needed to prove, and I believe that it has done this very well, is the statements that came out of all of these politicians,
Yeah.
starting from the president, who just before talking to you, I heard is now facing accusations in Switzerland.
Okay.
He's currently in Switzerland and he seems to be facing accusations. Who knows what will happen? We will follow the news after we finish recording our podcast. The president did say that there is no such, something that means that there is no distinction between civilians and military, and that the civilians made the mistake of not revolting against Hamas, which makes them also subject to blame and subject to the Israeli army's targets.
Mm-hmm.
But also like the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense, all of whom have made a lot of expressions showing their intention to, destroy the Gaza Strip. Now, there are many, many statements, hundreds of statements from politicians at all different levels. But there are also statements and expressions from many, many people below this level, below the political level. Israel has not taken any steps to prevent the genocidal language.
Yeah.
And history tells us, by the way, despite that, I don't think that this is something that was argued in this case yet, but I'm sure it might come in the future more, and it will take a significance. The genocide in Rwanda was very much encouraged by the media, by radio stations telling people to go and kill. People carried whatever knives they found around their house and went and started killing people in Rwanda because of the media influence. Yeah. But South Africa did show how the soldiers in Gaza Strip actually repeated words from Netanyahu, the prime minister, while they were doing the very wide-scale destruction. So they repeated the Netanyahu genocidal language while they were doing their job. So this is one part of the intent. Now the other part, this is the expressions. But let's assume that all the Israeli politicians were silent and they did not say any genocidal expressions. Okay, let's assume that this is the case, which is not, but let's assume it. Does this mean then that we cannot prove genocidal intent? And the answer is no.
Okay.
It's not only what you say in your mouth or what you write or etc. It's also how you conduct your war. If you prevent food, medicine, water, fuel, electricity from a whole civilian population in a certain place, and if you destroy the ability of the medical sector to deal with all the casualties, and if you destroy most of the houses in the areas where you are striking, and if you displace 85% of the population into places where there is no safety, no food, no water, this is a genocide.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are actually destroying a population. And we know also that the Israeli state institutions have been negotiating and asking from Egypt and from other countries to receive all the Palestinian population from Gaza Strip. So the plan has been to displace everyone in Gaza Strip, to make Gaza Strip an empty territory. Crazy.
Yeah.
We are in the 2024 now.
Yeah.
And there are still politicians and army people who want to evict a total area from population and make it empty. I mean, they did manage to do it in 1948, and they think it's still possible in 2024. So all of these circumstances show that even if they did not say anything, that their actions were genocidal and are genocidal.
Mm-hmm.
And this is enough also. It does prove intent.
Yeah. On that point, when you mentioned we're looking specifically at genocide, is there a way or is there any other case that can be taken alongside this action that only looks at the war crime element? Or is that something that wouldn't be worth doing? Why just focus on the genocide aspect of it if there are clear grounds that have to be proven when there are other conventions that have been breached and there's other mechanisms under international law within which to address the war crime and the breach of humanitarian law, for example? What can be done there, if anything?
The reason why South Africa went to the genocide is, one, that there is a genocide happening. Mm-hmm. Two, that there is a convention that allows South Africa to go to the International Court of Justice. And this is a unique opportunity, by the way. Yeah. Most conventions will not allow you to do that, especially if there are reservations by different states that would not allow you to go to court. Going to court is not an automatic thing. You need the consent of every state to go to court. Now, Israel made this consent when it ratified the convention without expressing any reservation on Article 9 of the convention, which allows countries to file applications against each other in the International Court of Justice. So basically, Israel has allowed any state that wants to sue it to do that in the International Court of Justice on this specific convention. It did not do that with other conventions. Okay? So this convention provides a very unique opportunity to us in the International Court of Justice. Now, third reason, before I go there, the third reason is that this allows the court to give provisional measures. Provisional measures can save lives, can actually change the dynamic of the interaction of the international community with Israel. Mm-hmm. It is binding, fully binding. It's not an advisory opinion. It's not, it's a binding decision. So Israel will have to abide by it. If it doesn't, then the international community will have to intervene, legally speaking, right? So it will change the dynamic. It's very important. It can save lives, and and this is our first priority right now. Now, there is another court that has jurisdiction on our case, which is the International Criminal Court. Yeah. The International Criminal Court in 2021 decided that it does have jurisdiction over the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. This is a court decision. So now we know for sure that it has jurisdiction. The way the International Criminal Court works is different. Countries cannot file cases against each other in the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court actually does not really address state responsibility. It addresses individual criminal responsibility. And it does that through a prosecutor who is basically the gatekeeper of the court and who has the power to decide which case he or she is going to take further and file, accuse a certain person of a crime, a war crime, a crime against humanity, a genocide also. This all is in the power of the prosecutor. The prosecutor is currently Mr. Karim Khan, who unfortunately has been refraining for many years, well, not many, 2 years now, from moving forward with the Palestinian file. And he has been refraining from accusing Israelis of war crimes or crimes against humanity, despite all of the evidence that he has and all of the work that his predecessor the former prosecutor Fatah bin Suda conducted. He came to a visit for during this genocide. First to Israel, surprisingly, even before going to investigate in the state that has joined the International Criminal Court and joined the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, which is Palestine. So he started by visiting Israel, going through the areas that Hamas and other groups and individuals attacked back on the 7th of October. Hear the Israeli state official story about what happened without investigating. So he did say that I'm not coming to investigate, which is very weird.
Yeah.
Why would the prosecutor visit a place
It's incredible.
without investigating? Your job is to investigate, not to visit and tour places and hear state stories, right? But that's what he did. It's very unfortunate. And it's very,
It's incredible.
unfair.
That would, yeah. Do you think anything will change given the volume of cases that might be brought forward, or are there a significant increase in cases brought forward to the ICC?
I mean, we are still waiting. He has to move. He has a legal obligation to move. Yes, he has a lot of power, but his power must not be abused.
Yeah.
He is currently witnessing a genocide, as well as a very large number of war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
He has the capacity to contribute to ending this genocide and these war crimes and these crimes against humanity. He is witnessing an apartheid, which is also a crime against humanity. And he has the capacity to do that. He has a legal obligation to do that. Unfortunately, he is still not conducting his job properly in Palestine. He has been much more active in Ukraine.
Okay.
This is what is called double standard.
Yeah.
When you can see that a person and an institution is active somewhere and talking about international law and crimes and accusing and all of that, and then silent somewhere else. Look, I don't think that the Israelis will be able to get away with all of these crimes forever. Now, they have enjoyed impunity
Yes.
for decades. But maybe my sense of justice is telling me that this will not continue forever. And it's not only my sense of justice. So it's not only, I do have a naive sense of justice. I admit that, right? I always believe that justice will prevail. This comes from somewhere in my heart and not necessarily my brain. However, I also can see that there are so many active anti-genocide, anti-apartheid, anti-crimes against humanity lawyers and activists around the world who are working. Today, we have been surprised, actually, I have been surprised to hear about what happened in Switzerland. I don't know how that will end. Maybe the Israeli president will be arrested, maybe not, right? But it shows me that there are people in Switzerland who are looking for a way to contribute to end the genocide by holding those who are responsible accountable.
Yeah.
I also know that there will be similar people everywhere else around the world.
Yeah.
I know that there are many in Ireland, right? And who will not allow complicity or even silence against genocide to continue. I know that for sure. I know the Irish people, right?
Yeah.
I know that they're in England. I've studied in England and I've seen the difference between the human rights community and the state institutions. So I also know that people will be active. I know that this is true in the United States. the main supporter of Israel. Now there is a case in the United States against Biden. Next Friday,
That's right.
we will be witnessing a case in California.
Which a lot of people don't know about, and it's very significant.
Yeah, it's against Biden for supporting genocide and complicity with genocide. So it's next Friday, and I think it's very exciting. So I think that what has kept the world silent for a long time is changing. And I believe that South Africa has breached the wall of impunity against Palestine. There has been a wall of impunity that has kept us and kept the Israelis out of accountability. This wall has been constructed by the US, the European Union, and many other countries, but also many complicit regimes in the Middle East, in Africa, in all different places around the world, who have helped impunity. Now, I believe that South Africa has made a very important breach in this war, and it will allow more and more breaches until the wall of impunity is totally broken, and until we start seeing accountability. Once we start seeing accountability, I believe the dynamic will change, and crimes will not be as cheap as they have been in the past. And when the crimes are not cheap anymore, they stop. You know, apartheid was easy in South Africa itself. South Africa has the experience. I mean, we learn from South Africa. South Africa is an important model for us as Palestinians, by the way. We learn from their struggle. They were treated as subhuman by the apartheid regime for decades, but they continued fighting and fighting and fighting, and they managed to make apartheid costly for the apartheid regime until they managed to dismantle that apartheid regime. I believe we are heading there. We are in the way. Nothing will be able to stop it. It will be costly for us as well. I know that. We are still, I mean, what we are witnessing today in Gaza is very costly. Each life, each child, each mother, each father who are being murdered in Gaza Strip is a price that nobody has to pay. No human being should pay. Every person who is suffering pain, physical pain in Gaza Strip, and they don't find any medicine or any relief to reduce the pain. This is what's happening now. Is people are doing surgeries without anesthesia, right? Am I pronouncing it right?
Yes, you're pronouncing it right.
Yes. So this is crazy. This is you know, everything happening in Gaza is unhuman and inhumane, and nobody deserves it.
Yeah.
We are paying a very expensive price for our freedom, but eventually we will have to get it. You know, the status quo cannot continue. The Israelis failed to see that, unfortunately. Until now, Israeli leaders fail to see that they have to change something. They believe that what doesn't come with force will come with more force. This is their motto, basically, in life. And they always say that Arabs only understand force and power, and we don't understand anything else. This is also something you keep hearing in the media all the time. And not only now, since always.
We've heard it for decades.
Yeah, they're not planning to change themselves.
They're not planning to change themselves. And it's just so unsettling. And I guess we're talking about the legal aspect of everything. And then we brought right back down to earth when we realise that this is still, it's ongoing as we speak, and there's no signs of this stopping. So while it's fascinating to me as well to talk about the legal aspect, and I mean, this is, as you said, you've tapped in there to your sense of justice. I find that so inspiring to hear your thoughts, your opinion as an expert, but also as a Palestinian and as somebody who's lived through all of this, to share your thoughts with that on this. And I suppose you've answered my question about how impactful or significant it is in South Africa taking this case regardless of the outcome. And I don't even want to go down that road of talking about the outcome at this stage. We're very, very hopeful. But as you say, it's seismic in terms of addressing accountability. And it's the first time that we, as the global community, have seen some sort of movement in that direction. And I guess that's why people have been quite relieved and quite proud of the action that's been taken and standing together to see this. What do you think the sense is when it comes to the ICJ and this hearing? Are people talking about it? Are people hopeful, or are they feeling this is just another waste of time because we know that they're not going to, they've acted with impunity for years, they haven't ever been held accountable, and they've given up hope? What have you been hearing?
Okay, my interaction with people is basically there are this human rights community which I am in touch with, and the human rights community is very much hopeful, and they believe that a lot of good things will come out of this breach in the wall of impunity that South Africa has made. And that specifically the case, the ICJ case, people are optimistic about it. Now, the rest of the Palestinian population, they don't believe in international law anymore, unfortunately. They feel that human rights are not for us. They are for some other nations around the world, but not for us. They have been disappointed time and time again with international institutions and with the ability of international institutions to protect the Palestinian people. We have been witnessing veto after veto to shield Israel from accountability. We have been witnessing meetings and conferences around the world with a lot of good words sometimes, but no action coming out of words. You go through the UN Security Council as well as General Assembly resolutions records, and you will really find a lot of important statements made there historically since 1948. But when you look at the ground, you will find that nobody has ever yet been punished for anything, and that we have no way to protect ourselves from genocide, apartheid, war crimes, crimes against humanity, etc. So people are very much disappointed. And when we talk about courts and international courts, they follow, but they always, and even journalists who are very well experienced, they always talk about it as if like that this is useless. I talk to journalists a lot, and they always want to reach the conclusion that whatever happens here, we will get to the same place that we have gotten to time and time again in the history. That there will be discussions, there will be statements, but then you look on the ground and there is nothing changing. I believe differently. And not only because of my naive sense of justice, but also because this is an important case that South Africa has made. It does have a lot of ways that it can take forward for results and for accountability. This cannot be taken for granted. It needs to be planned. It needs to be thought about in order for us to eventually find results. Because yes, the Security Council is a hopeless case. The US will use the veto in the Security Council. So there's nothing we can hope for in the Security Council. But then we need to plan for the General Assembly and what we're going to do in the General Assembly when a decision comes out of the court. So that all is very important. It's still struggle. There isn't one button that we can press, and then the genocide and the war crimes will stop. Unfortunately, it's still a very long way towards accountability and towards justice. But I believe that South Africa has opened an important road, and that this road will lead to a lot of justice.
Well, Dr. Munir Nuseibah, thank you so much for sharing your extremely important and insightful legal opinion, but also your own personal thoughts on all of this. We're all watching, and I know you've had a very, very busy few weeks, so I'm really appreciative of your time, and stay in touch with us here. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
One final word. We love Ireland.
Yes.
And we have a very important relationship with Ireland, a relationship actually quite similar to our relationship with South Africa, that there is mutual understanding, mutual struggle and history. And that's why we expect a lot from Ireland. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I want to say that because I'm sure that a lot of the listeners to this podcast are from Ireland, north and south. And I think this message is important. We expect a lot from you and from Ireland as a state in this important time. Please don't disappoint us. You will not. I know you will not, but
let's hope our leaders are listening. Let's hope they're the ones who need to hear this. Let's hope they listen in and take note.
Yeah, we need you. We need you to stop this genocide.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Nuseibah, again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for joining me today. If you like the show, please remember to share and leave a review if you have a moment. And you can also check out our website, www.activistlawyer.com, where you will see some blog articles written by our guests and contributors, as well as some fabulous Activist Lawyer merchandise.
This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.